So yeah, as I said, we have a little bit of a different structure, and so kids, you get to sit up here for this part, and just because you're part of the church, and we're doing is we're talking about how we are the church together. How are we going to work in this space where we are two congregations, but one church. We have a building, we have people to be cared for, we have tracking that need, we have all these things that need to happen, and in this new world, we have to have some new structures and some new patterns in order to make sure that that the ministry is happening here. So with that in mind, we launched the Missional Engagement Task Force. We put that together, it feels like about 6 years ago that we created a job description for that as a leadership team, and then it took us a while to get going and to try to figure out how we're going to do that and get the team together, that sort of thing. Once we did, we got going, and now this is hopefully the sense of a deeper launch into to what's happening. So as Doug was kind of chairing those things, I want to give Doug a chance to kind of refresh us on the pattern of what we've done so far and what we're trying to do.
Yes. Hello? Great. It can be summed down as conversations among family, conversations in community. As a matter of fact, if one thing has risen to the top, it's the desire we all have for deepening relationships with each other and the desire we have for deepening relationships with God. And we've done a few things. We've done surveys, we've done interviews, and then we had some fun doing a global cafe a little while ago, where it was an activity and a conversation. So today, we're deepening that conversation. And the conversation then becomes, so how can each of us participate in each of our own ways as God calls us to? We just had Thanksgiving, and I just wanted to share something with you. Is that okay, Andy?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Andy and I talk back and forth a fair amount, and we have some fun doing it. And guess what? We don't always agree. Isn't that surprising?
Everyone's like, yeah, we don't agree with Andy either half the time, so that's good. That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's healthy, is when we have different perspectives in. My family doesn't always agree with me, that's for sure. And sometimes I don't agree with my family. But you work it through. We had Thanksgiving dinner, and it was really an amazing time because all of the kids, we meet at Dara and Ben's and Aaron and Marissa's house. They have a Vancouver special they rent, upstairs and downstairs. So as we gathered for Thanksgiving, and of course that involves some friends and extended family, so there was about 20 of us there that day. And each of us brought something. And each of us contributed. So I ended up carving the turkey and trying to time it in with the beans and the other amounts, the other side dishes. And as we put the spread out, we all sat down satisfied, knowing that as family, we had all contributed. As family, we were having a great time, and we had all taken part. But that didn't happen without some organization. And fortunately, Dara, my oldest daughter, likes to organize everybody. I think it has something to do with being the oldest. I don't know. And so she said, you bring this, who's bringing this? And to make sure we really didn't duplicate too much and we could all enjoy a feast. And then who's inviting who? And so behind the scenes of family getting together and enjoying fellowship is organization. Behind the scenes is conversation. And really, that's what we're here today about, right? Conversations about how do we as a community and as a fellowship grow together deeper? And how do we do it in such a way that is organized and people know expectations? People have the opportunity to participate. One more really important thing, as people join us, these church studies, I don't know if you studied this too, Andy, that means that if people come to a church and within 6 weeks they're not involved in some way, they tend to leave. Because we all not only desire community. We desire contribution. We desire to be part of something. So it's really important as we grow that we're always providing people the opportunity to be one of us, to be part of us. So that there's not those who are serving and performing and those who are sitting and watching. That's not what church is about. So let's go through some of this.
Well, why don't we you want to pass those out, and then
Would that be a good
yeah,
idea?
I think let's have them in people's hands so that we can kind of have it to talk through. So
That's why he's the pastor. Would you mind passing those out then? Thank you, Joel. And where's Joyce gone? Oh, Karen's doing it. Excellent. So just pass them down the row, okay?
So yeah, I just want to say as we're doing that, you guys do a lot for the church, and
Yes.
and we're thankful for that, and so want to make sure that this isn't a time where we're saying, well, how can we get people to do more work for the church? It's more of a sense of how do we get people to do this together as a community? How do we organize? How do we keep us engaged with the mission? How do we stay focused? And one of the things that has been a struggle for me in some ways is, remember we did the Enneagram a few years ago, and we tried to figure out our personality type. Some of you might have been here for that. I was a 2. I'm a servant, which means in my the mask that I wear in order to be loved is to serve, is to do whatever I can for people, to make people's lives easier, to make people's lives happier, to make people's community better, all of those kind of things. And as a servant, one of the places where I struggle is to say, it's too often where I am just ready to say, well, okay, yeah, I'll do that. Or, oh, don't worry about that. We can let that go. Or we struggle with things. And in that pattern of stuff, I've always said, well, we're not trying to create a church that has a lot of meetings, that is scheduling this to talk about this or to talk about that. And you guys have been great. You guys are a church of doers. When we need to do something, we do it. We get it done. But yet, we also then sometimes come up a little bit short with people saying, this is my area to help push this further, to help us think more about this, to commit to this, to do this. This is an area where I commit to taking leadership on that, and I work with Pastor Andy, and I work with others to make this happen. And so as we work through this, we're trying to create a little bit more of that, where we say, this is our church. This is our church. And because of that, we lead that, we take responsibility. So don't go through and start checking things off yet. I know a lot of you are already doing a lot of things. But we want to talk through what that is. So why don't you explain the checklist a little bit, and we
Sure.
go from there.
And just to be how do you say this? Which is why Auntie and I have such lively conversations. I'm an 8, which means I just like to organize things and see them done. So some of the leadership team will attest that sometimes my weakness is patience. Why aren't we doing it now? And Andy is saying, yeah, okay. Do you think that'll all start at once? And so that's a good balance, right? So the other thing we heard, though, is not only are a lot of people doing things, but people who come in or people who want to get involved don't necessarily know what to do. Mm-hmm. And I've even heard people who are doing one thing who says, well, it's really on my heart, or God is leading me to do more of this, more of greeting, more of reaching out to people. And we don't want to buttonhole people in because they've been doing one thing into another. So, by the way, those, when we get a time, who are already doing a lot, just check off that which is in your heart to be doing. And that's what we're actually looking for as well.
Good. So I just want to start. We have what one of the main ideas coming from the Missional Engagement Task Force, or one of the pieces of structure that we said is that we need to create a spiritual care team, a group of people, 3 or 4 people who are committed to praying and to caring and to knowing and to looking after each other. So what we're looking for in the spiritual care team is we're looking to say we need 3 or 4 people, mature believers who are willing to step in and say, all right, how are we following up with people? How are we praying for people? How are we connecting for people? How are we organizing prayer on a Sunday morning so that there's always somebody to pray for? So we're looking for a group of people and I've talked to some of you already about this. Now there's areas in this spiritual care area that we can all serve, but we're also looking specifically for leaders in this area that would say, yes, this is my role, is I work with Pastor Andy or the leadership to make sure that we're caring for people and leading people through that. And then you say, hey, someone else says, oh, I could pray for people on a Sunday morning, or I could be a part of a team that is visiting people, or caring, going to the hospital, or baking meals, or those kind of things. That's all part of the spiritual care team, but we also have a very specific group that we're looking for in that. So
Exactly. Like my wife, she's a prayer warrior. So I'll be out doing, and she'll say, oh, yes, I really need to spend an hour or 2 in prayer on that one issue. I said, how on earth do you spend an hour and 2 in prayer on any issue? It's just not part of my personality, and it's not part of my giftedness, but it is hers. Prayer. Everything happens as we intercede and ask God for things. So very important. Shall I do hospitality?
Yep.
If you ever get a chance to pick up a book, Jim and Casper Go to Church, it's wonderful. It's a pastor who used to be a marketer. So he hired an atheist to visit churches with him and comment on what he experienced there and what he saw. And one of the things they saw for several large churches was, well, I went in, nobody said hi to me. I felt like a stranger. I wasn't greeted in. I don't believe that's the case here. But we want to strengthen that so that anybody who walks in our door and comes in, and they instantly know, hey, you're welcome here. You're part of us. So tell me about yourself. And if they keep coming, so let's see how you can get involved. What are you interested in getting involved in? So that's the idea of the hospitality. And
one other thing with that one,
Yeah.
Doug mentioned if you're not involved in 6 weeks, you end up not sticking around the church. I heard a different statistic that said people have decided, once they visit a church, they've decided whether they're going to come back again within 10 minutes of being at church. And so, in general, right? So it's not about the preaching, which affects some decision-making things. It's not about how good the coffee is, or if it's in the middle of the service or at the end of the service. It's really, do I feel like this could be a home for me when I walk into the space? So we're looking to find a way to make that happen. How do we make this a hospitable place that welcomes people? And so you can see the different things. Yeah. That also includes the meals. We've said one of our goals is to get people together, right? We have 2 congregations that we don't necessarily see each other, but we want to be together. So we've had the potlucks, we've had the second Saturdays, we've had events, we have a Bible study with people from both churches on Tuesday nights. We're trying to see people, both congregations, not both churches. We make that mistake. We're not 2 churches, we're 1 church. And so that we're together, and we're getting to know each other, and we're loving each other, and supporting each other, and growing in Christ together. And we need people to help make that happen in that hospitality sense. So I don't know if there's anything else on that list.
Just a little, not to embarrass anybody, but I was talking to one gentleman who happens to be doing coffee today, and we ended up talking about the coffee maker and how, sorry to embarrass you, how he had spent considerable time scraping out the coffee because he felt it wasn't tasting as good. Sometimes it's the little things that show how much we care. And it's the little things that make a massive difference in the church.
I mean, because coffee is bad enough as it is. And so if it's not tasting as good as it normally does, that's a problem, I guess. So
JJ Bean's too expensive, so.
The next thing on the list, so we're just going down, there's property team. We have an old building, right? We are working on it. There's different things that are going on. We have leaking problems. We have pumps that have to be switched around and moved, and different tasks. And what we used to have what we called the trustees. And the trustees were a board of people who were responsible for the well-being of the church and overlooking at it and managing it and saying, oh, look, my goodness, we need to get these carpets cleaned. And it was that group of people who was responsible to say, okay, yeah, let's get the carpets cleaned. Let's bring in a carpet cleaner and do this. Keith Fullerton used to say, okay, we need to do the floors downstairs. Everybody show up on Saturday. We're going to do the floors together. What we're looking for here is a group of people who will not just respond when I call and say, hey, can you take the 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. shift of moving pumps around? I've done it the last 2 nights. Could you do it tonight, kind of thing? That's not just what we're talking about. We are looking to kind of invoke that sense of, you know what? Here's the people who are overseeing this with, again, working with me to do that, and that it takes that piece of building management, building specifics off of me, and you wait for me to call and say that. We have people who work very hard around here. Vic has been the weed eater here. He was the weed eater here for years, and not eating weeds, but chopping them, and he'd bring his little electric thing and trim all around. Don is here mowing the lawns often, and we just bought a new lawnmower. We have a group that's working on the cross, and they're doing a great job of hopefully erecting a cross. But we need a group that will kind of, and it's going to take meeting together some at the beginning to say, how are we going to do this? How are we going to oversee the property to make sure it's done? Because if you wait for me to notice something needs to be done, it's usually going to be too late. If you wait for me to decide to spend money on something, because I'm always worried about finances and all that kind of stuff, we're probably going to wait too late. We need a group of people who can say, you know what, this is my church, this is my building, this is my property, and I want to help this body care for this in a way that says I take responsibility for this. So that's what the property team is. And then again, there's other ways that you can help, that you can sign up. You don't have to be on that responsible team, but you can help in other ways too, and we need to know your skills on that. So that's what that's about.
Yeah, where is that? In my house are many mansions. What's the rest of that verse?
Those are units over at Covenant Village, Doug. Those aren't mansions. Those are units.
No.
Oh, the scripture,
Scripture,
Pastor. Sorry,
yeah.
yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
What's the end of that? There.
Yeah, I'm not.
Sorry?
That's
Exactly.
That's the John space in
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And really, this is God's house, but it's our house, because that's God's attitude, is that he just opens up his house for all of us. Focusing outward is where my heart probably is the strongest, personally. I would love to see us reaching out to the community more, because as people know us and we become that message into the community that Christ cares, that we care, those two are very, very linked. And really brief, forgive me for this, I worked at First Baptist for quite a while with a community meal. And one thing I thought was amazing was we had people from the street there, about 120, coming in every day, every Tuesday, and then they slept overnight, some of them. And we had volunteers of about 70 to 75. Now, only about a third to a half were from the church. Then we had business people coming in. We had sororities and fraternities coming in. And we had a lot of international students. That's when I discovered, if you want volunteers, ask the Brazilians. They're amazing volunteers. Anyway, and all of them worked together. Once in a while, a man upstairs or a woman upstairs would be coming along quite nicely, and they'd say, hey, why don't you just join us as a volunteer? Can I? Yes. And they would be welcomed into that mix. And you could see the difference it made in terms of their self-esteem, in terms of the way they thought of themselves. Often we did something called Devotions, which was a movie and a talk often. And guess who would speak up the most and share real life? And that was the people who had come in and were part of first the ministry and now the serving team. That, to me, has never left me as a model. What would it look like? I have no idea yet, by the way. Maybe some of you do. So how can we focus outward as time goes on, further into our neighborhood, further into the people surrounding us, so that they know God cares, they know we care, and we invite them to actually walk alongside us in serving others.
And so one of the other things with church life is that we are trying to make sure that we take a different approach to church than it used to be in the 50s or 60s, where this was a community and people would sign up and be on boards, and membership meant a lot, and meetings were great, and it was just a way of fellowshipping. We're trying to make sure that we're approaching things differently. But one of the challenges in that too is that as we restructure, or as we move around, as we do things, we end up saying, well, if nobody's responsible for something, then nothing gets done. And so how do we encourage responsibility and engagement for people, and not just, well, I come in and I do my thing on Sunday morning and then I go? Well, there's a lot that happens here that is together. And if you don't know how this works, then you don't know that we even need these things, and we do that. And then we say, hey, we need volunteers for First Friday or Second Saturday or the potluck, or we need volunteers for this, and it ends up being a more reactive kind of pulling at things rather than pushing forward in ministry. And so that's what this time is. And we could go through and we could do all of these different things, but you get the idea of what's happening here, and we don't need to go through each of these sections. Those are ones that we wanted to hit. We do have that sense of kids ministry. That's very important. We have a group of 3 teachers that rotates through downstairs, but we don't have anybody that's necessarily pushing the vision forward. As Lori and I, when we had kids, that made a lot of sense for us, because we were at everything, we were doing things, we were pushing, we knew what kids were dealing with in that time, we knew all of those kind of things, but we needed to expand that sense of what's happening too, and going beyond that. So
Communications team is actually something done behind the scenes, but some of you might be talented in communications, both in French and English, so that we can get, so as we look at our web, as we look at what do we need to communicate out via web, via social media, written materials like this and others. So if anybody has skills and a heart to do that, just let us know, because that's another area that really helps.
yeah. And then worship is the other area that's listed here, and you can see what those things are.
Amazing.
But and we just appreciate the gifts that we have, and that God continues to provide those things. One exciting thing, and you're going to learn more about this at the congregational meeting, we are at a space where this piano is on its last legs. It can't hold a tune. It needs more work than it's worth. And we've have a friend of someone in the church that was trying to get rid of a grand piano of their own, and they're offering to donate that to the church. And so we're thinking of replacing this grand piano up here with a little bit smaller but still grand piano that could kind of help us into the future. We have some resources that we have that will help hopefully cover the move and those kind of things. But that's one thing. But we're trying to find ways then also to get by on a smaller budget than we would like, struggling some finances that aren't always there. And so as we ask you for commitments, we're also asking you to consider your financial commitments to the church. And so this sheet is something for you to pray your way through, to think your way through. You could fill it out today, or you could take it home and pray over it and just say, what is God inviting me to in this process? And this is, we're trying to keep up with this, and you can bring this back, or we're going to try to figure out an online way to do this, that kind of thing. So
Back to worship for a minute. Marlene is a good example of everybody contributes. We have a wonderful young drummer here who has much better rhythm than I do, who joins the worship team, and how you've involved the young people at different ages. And as we pull together the 2 worship teams together, it's beautiful. It's just unbelievable. So thank you. The giving is an important aspect. And as I go home, I'm going to be considering, I've got budget for maintenance fees, I have budgets for other things. Where can this part fit in? my church, God's house. You will notice that it says connecting with you for follow-up and to discuss further steps. In the next week, I think we're aiming for a week, it might be a little longer, we want to send this out in an email form as well for those who are not here. And also, it says discuss further steps. So as we go along, be assured that as we can get further into specifics about what each of these means, but only after further conversations. Thank you.
So this kind of thing has come from our conversations that said, these are things that we're wanting to work on. This is what we're trying to do. This is how we're approaching it. And so we just appreciate you listening and hearing this and then taking these steps, and we just invite you into this in a prayerful sort of way. So
one other line, where else do you see yourself contributing? What did we miss? Is there somebody who has a gift here we don't know about?
Yeah. So we're going to invite the worship team to come back up, and as you've heard these things, and we're praying, we're also just offering ourselves to God in this process. And so as we think about commitment, as we think about life, this song has always been a great space for us to wrestle with what it means to actually commit to walking with Jesus. And so let this song kind of wash over you as you sing it, and invite you into that commitment mode of life together.